Between the old streets of Turkey, bread has never been just something to fill an empty stomach. For the people here, it is part of everyday life, a symbol of warmth, abundance, and hospitality that has been passed down from one generation to another. Bread is treated with deep respect. People never let it touch the ground, and even the smallest piece is never wasted. In many homes, bread is placed carefully at the center of the table, shared together with family as an important part of every meal. Every day, millions of loaves are baked inside traditional ovens, scattered across villages, towns, and crowded city neighborhoods. These ovens do more than feed people. They carry the spirit of an old culture that still lives strongly in modern Turkey today. The sound of hands kneading dough, the crackling fire inside the oven, and the quiet conversations between neighbors have become part of a familiar rhythm of daily life. In many communities, the bakery is not only a place to buy food, but also a place where people meet, talk, and stay connected to one another. And when people think about the famous bread of Turkey, they often remember the small bakeries glowing warmly on narrow street corners. What makes these bakeries special is the traditional clay tandoor oven, also called tandoor. Skilled bakers gently press soft dough onto the burning clay walls by hand. The heat from the fired clay cooks the bread evenly, giving it a golden crust, a rich aroma, and a light, smoky flavor that feels simple, honest, and deeply comforting. Holding a loaf fresh from the oven, still warm in your hands, you can truly feel the culture, patience, and care that Turkish bakers have poured into every layer of dough. In Turkey, there is hardly a meal during the day without bread on the table. From the busy streets of Istanbul to the remote villages high in the Anatolian mountains, bread is always there, like a quiet, main character in everyday life. No matter how rich the meal may be, with grilled meat, soup, or simply a few olives and pieces of cheese, bread is still the first thing people think about. Every day, millions of loaves are baked inside traditional ovens scattered across villages and city neighborhoods. These ovens do not stay lit only to feed people, but also to keep alive the heartbeat of an old heritage. The sound of kneading dough and the quiet conversations beside the glowing fire have become a familiar rhythm that brings families and neighbors closer together across generations. One of the simplest and most beautiful parts of daily life is the habit of buying fresh bread early in the morning. While the mist still hangs lightly over the stone-paved streets, fathers and young children can already be seen walking toward the neighborhood bakery. Holding a loaf of bread, fresh from the oven, feeling its warmth through the wrapping paper in the cool morning air, has become a childhood memory that many people never forget. For the people here, eating bread is not simply about food. It is a cultural habit that has been carefully carried on through many generations. Bread feels like a bridge between the past and the present, reminding people of the value of simplicity and gratitude toward their roots. This feeling lives most strongly inside the small street bakeries that keep their lights glowing from early morning, where the famous Turkish bread is baked inside blazing hot clay tandoor ovens. Using bare hands, the bakers skillfully press the dough onto the oven walls, letting the heat from the old clay give the bread its crispy texture, rich aroma, and smoky, wood-fired flavor. A taste that no modern electric oven could ever truly replace. If you look closely inside the kitchen, you will realize that the recipe behind these loaves of bread is surprisingly simple. There is nothing overly complicated, no rare spices, and no expensive ingredients. Yet hidden inside that simplicity is a deep philosophy that has shaped the lives of local people for generations. The bread is made from only 4 basic ingredients: flour, water, yeast, and salt, the pure gifts of nature itself. For Turkish people, white flour represents the richness of the vast Anatolian fields. Water is the source of all life. Yeast symbolizes growth and renewal, and salt carries the enduring warmth and resilience of human connection through the passing years. There is no need for butter, milk, or artificial additives. It is the harmony between these simple elements that gives bread its sacred value and turns it into the purest food on the family table. From these symbolic ingredients, bakers begin the process of kneading and shaping the dough with rough but skillful hands. They knead it slowly and carefully, putting their strength, breath, and full attention into the dough until it becomes soft, elastic, and full of life. Only then do they leave it to rest, so the yeast can rise naturally and evenly. Afterward, pieces of dough are separated, rolled into round shapes, or flattened into the familiar forms that have existed for centuries. Sometimes, bakers gently press their fingertips onto the surface, creating simple patterns that feel like the signature of each family or bakery passed down through generations. But the real difference lies in the way people here transform these humble ingredients into something deeply tied to their culture and identity. For them, bread is not simply food meant to fill the stomach. It carries the soul of an entire heritage. The bakers do not knead the dough with strength alone. They also pour patience, respect, and love for their roots into every movement of their hands. This is why every loaf coming out of the oven holds more than the taste of wheat and water. It also carries the warmth of family, the memory of shared meals, and the strong connection between generations that has survived through thousands of years of history. Even today, in the middle of modern cities and changing times, the smell of freshly baked bread still reminds people of where they came from and the traditions they continue to protect. To understand why the bread here carries such a deep and unforgettable charm, you have to look at the true heart of the kitchen, the tandoor oven, a long-standing symbol of traditional bread baking in Turkey. At first glance, the structure of a Turkish tandoor oven may seem plain and simple, but in reality, it is the result of generations of experience passed carefully from one baker to another. The oven is shaped like a large clay vessel made from special earth, then surrounded by thick layers of brick or stone to trap and hold heat inside for long periods of time. Its most unique feature is the open mouth facing upward toward the sky, like a glowing bowl of fire, a place where the oldest and most natural elements come together. Local people believe that cooking with a tandoor oven is the perfect balance between earth, water, fire, and air. Earth forms the body of the oven itself. Water mixes with flour to bring life into the dough. Fire burns deep below, creating the powerful heat needed to bake the bread. Air flows through the hollow chamber of the oven, helping the heat spread evenly in every direction. These 4 natural elements work together in harmony, turning the act of baking bread into something far more meaningful than ordinary cooking. For many families, it feels almost sacred, like a ritual that connects people to nature and to the generations that came before them. When the clay oven is heated with a strong fire for hours, the thick inner walls slowly absorb and store enormous amounts of heat. The surface of the clay becomes intensely hot and steady, creating the perfect environment for baking. At that moment, the baker performs one of the most skillful parts of the process. With bare hands and quick movements learned through years of practice, the dough is pressed directly onto the burning hot inner walls of the oven. There are no baking trays, no metal pans, and no modern machines involved. The soft dough touches the heated clay itself, and that direct contact creates something almost magical. The dough immediately sticks to the wall, swelling and blistering as heat rushes toward it from every side. It is this extreme heat that gives Turkish tandoor bread its unmistakable character. The outside crust lightly chars where it touches the clay, forming crispy brown spots filled with smoky flavor, while the inside remains soft, moist, and pleasantly chewy. As the bread bakes, the smell of wheat rises together with the scent of burning wood and warm earth. The aroma feels rich, rustic, and deeply comforting, carrying a flavor that modern electric ovens and gas ovens can never truly reproduce, no matter how advanced they become. That is why, when someone holds a loaf of bread freshly pulled from the mouth of the oven while steam still rises into the cold air, they are experiencing far more than just a good meal. They are tasting the meeting point between people and nature itself, where the strength of fire and the quiet patience of clay have worked together to create the famous bread of Turkey. Every piece torn by hand carries the warmth of the earth, the memory of old street bakeries, and the spirit of generations who kept this tradition alive. Even after a single bite, the smoky and honest flavor of the bread stays in the memory for a very long time. Behind every loaf of bread coming fresh out of the oven is not only the warmth of fire, but also the long passage of time carried through generations of people devoted to this craft. In Turkey, baking bread is not simply a job to make a living or a temporary way to survive from day to day. It is a traditional craft, passed down through families for generations, a sacred heritage handed from father to son, from grandfather to grandchild, with deep pride and respect. In the narrow alleys of crowded cities or in the quiet villages of the countryside, bakeries have always been places that keep the spirit of family culture alive, where the reputation and heart of the baker are shaped through hundreds of years of history. Because of this strong tradition, many bakers begin learning the craft at a very young age. The image of little boys with flour-covered hands carefully watching every movement of their father's kneading dough or staring curiously at the flames dancing inside the tandoor oven has become a familiar part of life here. They do not learn from books or expensive schools. Instead, they learn through observation, by listening carefully to the way the dough seems to breathe and by feeling the heat rising from the clay walls of the oven with their own senses. These bakers grow up surrounded by flour, fire, and family bakeries. Their childhood memories are not filled with luxury toys, but with the comforting smell of freshly harvested wheat and the long nights spent waking early beside their families to prepare the first batch of bread for the new day. The bakery is more than just a workplace. It becomes their playground, their classroom, and their school of life. It is where they learn patience while waiting for dough to rise, skill while pressing bread onto the oven walls, and hospitality through the simple act of handing warm bread directly to customers. That deep connection shapes bakers whose souls seem to move together with earth and fire. They understand every small behavior of the tandoor oven inside their bakery. They know when the flames have reached the perfect heat and when the clay walls are hot enough to create the famous bread of Turkey. When you visit a small bakery and watch an old baker moving his hands quickly beside the mouth of the glowing clay oven, you should understand that those are not only the hands of one man. They are the hands of an entire bloodline, a generation protecting the spirit of Anatolia itself. The bread here is baked inside blazing hot clay tandoor ovens, carrying with it a rustic, smoky flavor and the warmth of people who have spent their whole lives caring for every handful of white flour with patience, pride, and love. Every loaf feels like more than food. It feels like a living memory passed carefully from one generation to the next, keeping alive the traditions, stories, and soul of old Turkish bakery culture, even in the middle of a rapidly changing modern world. When you stand in front of a small street bakery, holding a loaf of bread so hot it almost burns your hands, quickly wrapped in a piece of brown paper, it feels as though all the noise of the city slowly fades away behind you. The very first bite always brings a special feeling, a rush of sensation that is difficult to fully describe with words. It is nothing like eating an expensive meal in a luxurious restaurant. Instead, it feels like the most honest connection to the soul of the land and the winds of Anatolia itself. That feeling is warm and soft, yet filled with the gentle, smoky aroma of the tandoor oven lingering in the air. The outer crust is crisp and crackling, breaking apart with a light crunch the moment your teeth touch it. But beneath that crust is the soft, white inside, slightly chewy and still warm, almost like the breath of the baker who has just pulled it from the oven moments before. What makes it unforgettable is the rustic scent of smoke, a flavor born from burning firewood and heated clay walls, slowly absorbed into every layer of dough. The smell is never too strong or overwhelming. It stays light and comforting, quietly reminding people of peaceful evenings spent beside glowing fires at sunset. More than just food, this is the taste of tradition itself. Every piece of bread carries the salt of the baker's sweat, the natural sweetness of wheat carefully treasured through generations, and the warmth of families who have protected the baking craft since ancient times. When you chew slowly, you begin to feel a quiet connection between past and present, between the hands that made the bread and the person tasting it. This feeling becomes even stronger inside the small bakeries that keep their lights glowing before sunrise each morning, where the famous Turkish bread is baked inside blazing hot clay tandoor ovens. Using bare hands and movements shaped through years of experience, the bakers skillfully press the dough onto the burning walls of the oven, allowing the ancient heat of the clay to give each loaf its own spirit and character. The bread rises and darkens beside the fire, carrying with it the smell of smoke, earth, and wheat all at once. That first bite does more than satisfy hunger. It warms something much deeper inside people. It reminds them that the simplest things in life are sometimes the most precious. In a world that changes so quickly, a loaf of bread baked inside a clay oven still carries the comfort of home, the patience of tradition, and the quiet love of people who have devoted their entire lives to this humble craft. Long after the bread is gone, the warmth and smoky flavor remain in memory, like a small piece of old Anatolia that continues to live on through every loaf shared at the family table. And so, every early morning and every time the sun begins to set, the smell of freshly baked bread drifts gently through the narrow streets of Turkey. The crackling sound of firewood inside the tandoor oven is more than just the sound of cooking. It feels like the heartbeat of a land where warmth, kindness, and human connection are deeply valued. People come to the bakery not only to buy bread for their meals, but also to exchange greetings, ask about each other's health, or share small stories beside the glowing fire. A hot loaf, fresh from the oven, crisp on the outside, and still steaming inside, is often broken apart and shared right there on the spot. In many ways, that simple loaf becomes an invisible thread tying neighbors and families closer together. Out in the modern world, everything may change quickly with new machines and technology. But beside the tandoor oven, time seems to slow down and make room for the simplest and most honest human values. The fire inside the tandoor oven has never truly gone out, even after generations have passed. It does more than bake bread to feed people. It also keeps alive the humble and warm spirit of Turkish culture itself. To keep the oven burning is also to keep the warmth of the home alive, protecting old traditions from slowly disappearing in the rush of modern life. One day, no matter how far people from this land may travel, they will probably never forget the warmth coming from that old kitchen, where hard-working bakers stand beside glowing clay ovens and loaves of bread carry the true taste of home. For them, bread is never just food. It is memory, family, and pride flowing quietly through their blood. And the fire of the tandoor will continue to burn, steady and warm, just like the spirit of the Turkish people themselves, always open-hearted and full of life.